The United Nations' purpose in the Syrian civil war was to maintain international peace and security. The structures included General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council, and Secretariat.
The World Trade Organization is for countries to trade with each other in peace. It's to set and enforce rules for international trade, to provide a forum for negotiating and monitoring disputes, to resolve trade disputes, to increase the transparency of decision-making processes, to cooperate with major international economic institutions and help developing countries benefit.
The International Court of Justice has a purpose of settling international disputes between states, which makes it a non-criminal court and gives advisory opinions on legal questions. Overview of the Syrian War. The cause was Syrians engaged by corruption and emboldened by a wave of Arab Spring, which protests against the region took to the streets to demand democratic accountability for their leaders. The impact on Syria was 53% of hospitals and 51% of healthcare facilities are fully functional, and more than 8 million people lack access to safe water. An estimated 2.4 million children are out of school. Conflict has shattered across the economy, and more than 80% of the population lives in poverty. There was no education, and the war ended by the Islamic State and no longer remains control over any territory in Syria and lost its leader. US, Iran, Russia, Turkey, and among others were fought into a complex proxy war.
The United Nations chief pressed governments to step up their financial and humanitarian commitments to Syrians and the nations who provided shelter to them. Since 2012, the Council has adopted 27 resolutions and or relating Syria, and the United Nations continues to support efforts towards Syria, but in the first place it has failed to maintain peace and security for them.
The World Trade Organization, civil war either eliminated or drastically reduced all of Syria's main trading industries. Devastating economic impact of war. From 2010 to 2018, exports fell from 8.7 billion to 0.7 billion, a 92% decrease. Syrians' currency depreciated 90% and inflation reached 700%. But before the civil war, two main pillars of the Syrian economy were agriculture and oil.
At the end of May 2011, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Russia opposed ICJ's involvement in Syria because the situation doesn't present a threat to international peace and security. They then blocked the ICJ from getting involved.
The following human rights were violated: no torture, no unfair detainment, freedom to move, right to life, and right to education. Kids had no right to education, hospitals were mostly full, and people were also detained.